Hi, I'm Coach MK, founder of the Fitness Protection Program. I'm a run coach, not a life coach. We're never really talking about the running. Running is the tool. It's the conduit we use to examine the world we live in, as well as its impact on our own lives and the lives of the people around us. How we react to certain people and to certain stories tells us a lot about how we view ourselves. I'm committed to the thoughtful, intentional exploration of the importance of running so that no one discounts their own badassery, ever. Final note, this podcast is geared towards every runner who won't lose their home, livelihood, or health insurance if they show up to the corral with a hangover. Not that I'm encouraging you to do that, just saying. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Fitness Protection Podcast.
So, what'd you do this weekend, MK?
So, fuck yeah, I ran a marathon in New York City this weekend. It was awesome. And then I ate everything, fell asleep.
That's what I really want to hear about. I want to hear about everything you ate. Can you just give us a list?
I'm kind of kidding. It really wasn't that much food.
Damn it.
Normally it is, but this time it was just my husband got Smack, which is Sarita's mac and cheese, and they do gluten-free mac and cheese, and it's just amazing. Usually, it's really hard to get gluten-free pasta with any sort of texture to it, right? If it's rice, it falls apart if you boil it even a fraction of a second too long. If it's quinoa, it's usually chewy. So it's so easy to get wrong that someone who just gets it right every time, I'm like, I will pay for that. And we have to have it every time I go to town. There are 5 or 6 places I really love eating in New York City, and I just didn't have time to hit any of them because I got 4 kids now, got snowed in, lucky to have made it there in one piece, and then just hit the ground running and was moving the whole time. So yeah, I ate a lot of mac and cheese after I got showered and got in my bed, but I was more thirsty than anything. This is the first race I've ever done where about, I guess, 90 minutes in, I was like, whoa, this is not normal. This isn't right. I'm really thirsty. And I proceeded to drink. You can tell from my Strava, where I stopped 5 or 6 times to have water before I had to start walking when that butthead elbowed me in the stomach. I saw this big article this morning. Happened. Thank you. Me too. But you know what? It's okay. I'll sort of, to recap what happened. There had been a lot of pressure in my own brain. This is because I needed this to be something for me. And I know that, everyone has been so wonderful and so supportive and so kind. And I hated to be like, sorry, I'll buy and have to shut off social media, but I needed to make sure this is just like a big act of self-care. I needed to make sure that I really was okay because this was a really big emotional deal for me. And I needed to make sure that I had what I needed before I could then turn around and be what everybody else needed. Because the times when I've been the most honest and the most raw, I have also turned a lot of people off because it wasn't the narrative they came for. And I can't handle being in a bad moment where I'm disappointed on top of knowing that that same moment is really disappointing to other people. It's kind of one or the other. If I'm disappointing you by being myself, as long as I'm okay with it, I can handle it. But if I'm not, I got to make sure I'm okay before I can share. So let's start there. This is the first marathon I've run in 3 years. The last time I ran New York City was in 2015. And I've said all along, my 2 slowest marathons were also my 2 of my best, where I felt in control from start to finish, and I just blew my expectations out of the water. I showed up in 2013 really not knowing what to expect. Remember, I had just been coaching. I just started coaching myself. I had been running 18.5-minute miles for about 3.5 months, and then 14 and a half minute miles for, almost 2 months after that, and was like, what's going to happen at sea level? I don't know. And it ended up being way faster, and I ran a 4:26. So to come back in 2015, not running it with a friend, going at her pace, not expecting to come anywhere near a PR for me, I was pleasantly surprised to run a 4:16. That was a lot of fun. And I felt strong, and I could have done the whole thing. I recognized
this number from this time.
I could have run the whole thing a whole lot faster. I knew it. She knew it. We talked about it afterwards. And there's something I know, and I'll never completely understand it, where people get that sensation and feel disappointed with it. Because when I finish and I know I could have gone faster, that's like motivation to keep going. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not I feel like a failure. It's just like, ooh, there's more behind. Let's keep going. And that for me is such a strong, empowering notion that is what I'm perpetually seeking. Is there more there than I think? Was that good? Yes. Could it have been better? Yes. Woohoo! As opposed to could have been better. Dang, I messed up. That's just not that little tiny perspective. Mm-hmm. It means everything. So when I look back on 2015 and on all the things that made that year so good and that race so good, I also turned to later that summer, with a little bit of a hangover. Not gonna lie. I was at a wedding and they had really fancy wine. And I'm like, of course I can't not. When one of the wealthiest families invites you to the wedding, you don't not partake in absolutely every single thing that they do.
Agreed.
Shoot. So when I was in New York for that, I thought, well, since I'm in the New York Roadrunners system from where I ran with them for so many years, I needed an updated number because as soon as I register, they're using my old information. And so the information that they had for me in 2016 was based off of my 2 slowest marathons ever. Corral placement is key to really having a great New York experience as far as I'm concerned. And you'll hear exactly what I mean by that in a moment. It is a world of difference between being in wave 1 and wave 3. There's a world of difference between being in wave 2 Corral C and wave 2 Corral G. And it's simply that there are more people, there are more walkers, there are more people who have misjudged their finish times or have overshot the mark and whether or not you're dodging people. So you're less likely to be in a really crowded race. Even if you're at the back of wave 1, it's going to be a different experience than even if you're at the front of wave 3. And I cannot imagine what wave 4 must be like. I really can't. Mm-hmm. I mean, that to me is what Marine Corps and Chicago Marathon are like, just sort of like a chaotic free for all where you feel like you're in a race of 55,000 people. You don't feel
the whole way.
Mm-hmm. You don't feel that. And another reason I've not run Boston, right? It is like being in a sardine can, no motion around you for 26.2 miles. And I'm like, no, thank you. That sounds awful. When there's no fallback point in a race, I'm like, I don't really want to be there. Yeah. If there's no natural breaking up of the crowds, that's a little bit of a scary thought, but I digress. So I'm very spoiled. I've been in wave 1 for years and years and then, was in wave 3 and was like, oh, never again. That was my last 416. And I felt like I was kind of swimming upstream the whole time. Didn't love it. And so I went to run and I'm like, I need to go get a race, do a New York Roadrunners only race, get a time back in the system. So the next time I come running, they will estimate my finish time and corral me based off that time. So I need to go have a good time. So I showed up with a little bit of a hangover and ran a 5 miler in Central Park, the Pride.
I remember
run,
that.
One of my favorite runs. And I, even despite the late start, despite the heat, despite the more than slight hangover, I had a really strong race. And that predicted my finish time, to be somewhere around, 3:30 at the next New York Marathon, which I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen, but that's great. That's the corral placement I want. That's going to put me kind of where I want to be. So to that end, I was in, wave 2 Corral C, later pushed back to E when I deferred for a year. But what the significance of that day when I got the qualifying time for back in 2016 for the race I ran yesterday was that a 5 miler that I had run in 2010, very similar course because everything's in Central Park. I was within seconds of that finish time. And so not only to get the corral placement that I wanted, I got what I'd gone there to get, and I hadn't missed out on anything, which was again important to me. And I got to see oh, the old MK's still in there. Yay. That's awesome. That's very, very, very validating. So when you put that's what, when I say to people, if you're going to put a finish time into context, make sure it's the appropriate context. It doesn't have to be a PR. We can find meaning in all kinds of numbers. So with this number matching, my pre-baby self, that was super validating. Even though I wasn't at my fittest then, I look back and I'm like, man, in my least fit moments in 2010, I would kill for that today. And yay, I was really close in 2016. So to that end, when I went out and ran, the race yesterday, all of the data and all the predictions and all the conversations that I'd been having was somewhere between a 3:51 and a 3:59, which was exciting and very cool. But there's a part of me that was like, yeah, that's the high end of the orange. What's realistic? And they were like, nope, nope, you could probably go faster, but we don't want to bet on it. So that again was exciting, but nerve wracking to me. And what do I need to, it's really hard to focus on what do I need to get out of this day, when I'm looking at this finish time and what's possible and what trying to wrap meaning where meaning doesn't belong. Another reason I had to get off social media, because I know the 4-hour marathon barrier means a lot to people, but I've been, again, way faster than that. So how do I find a way to keep going when I'm nowhere near my fastest times? This is something I have to do every day. Every race I do for a very long time is not going to be a PR, yet I keep going, which is why when people are like, if it isn't PR, they feel bad and they want to quit. I'm like, I don't get it. I really don't. But I digress. So I had an astrological reading while I was there, and they talked about, well, Uranus is in retrograde, and they had my attention. I'm like, yes, it is. They're like, and Mercury is about to go into retrograde. I'm like, yeah, I know. Thanks. They're like, but there will be this window of pure cosmic sunshine that should last from, the evening of November the 2nd until about 4 p.m. on November the 3rd. And that gave me chills. And I was just like, oh gosh, I don't need more hope. What if this goes badly? What if like, the weather's supposed to be perfect and pure cosmic sunshine? But that sort of stuck in my head and became my mantra. It could be pure cosmic sunshine. Pure cosmic sunshine. And you know what it was? From the time I got in the corral and did my warm up and tossed off my stuff and got going, I just felt strong and in control and in a familiar place. And everything about it was amazing. I was running purely by power because my heart rate had been unnaturally high for the past week or so, and I still don't completely know why. And I've just made an appointment with my GP to go do some blood tests and saliva tests and see what's going on there, if anything. But it could be something, it could be a whole lot of nothing. So I started off with again, it's a super high heart rate, and was like, I can't worry about that. I've got my pace caps. My polar will vibrate when I break them. So all I'm going to look at for reference is how long I've been out here and current power. And I ran with my power caps all the way and was really shocked when I crossed I think it was the 17-mile mark, where I looked up and did the math really quickly and was like, oh, I'm on track.
Really were.
This could be really strong.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really faltered or felt weak, but I knew I was holding back, and I knew I had. Again, there's something knowing when you're holding yourself back, looking forward to that moment when you can kick the reins off and just let go. It doesn't feel wasteful. It's almost smug. Like, you wait. And then some butthead crossing the street in the Bronx just threw an elbow, and there had been several.
It wasn't even a runner.
Mm-mm.
Oh, fuck that.
I know.
That's terrible. Oh my God.
There were lots of street crossers when I started.
I even saw them on TV with the bros.
I've never seen this before. I've never seen this many before. I'll put it that way. Cause it's such a, not saying it's okay for the 6-hour marathoners, but I can kind of see it if you've been waiting all day and there's only one, and it's right there and it seems like there aren't that many people. Whatever. I don't know. But it was still so crowded when I was running that I was like, seriously, what are you doing? There are other ways you can cross the street. There are underpasses. Like, everywhere the marathon goes, you're not that far from a subway underpass, or just go up a block around. It was avoidable. New York City.
Oh my God.
It's avoidable. Yeah. So it made me really angry. And when there were multiple points where I almost tripped over some butthead crossing the street and being really rude about it. And then when the final one hit and the elbow came to my stomach, it hit me in the plexus, which is like right there, not the belly button, but above it, that fist space in between your rib cages. And it just knocked the wind out of me. And I doubled over, but I didn't fall over, and I refused to stop. And you can tell from my splits. I jogged for a bit, slowed down. And then finally I was fighting nausea. So I was like, I need to walk. And I threw my hands up and was like, you know what? I can force this and risk the worst and hope this goes away. Or I can have the empowered choice of walking, taking control of this and control of my moment and control of my race, and pick it up when I feel better. And that's exactly what I did. And I was really okay with it. At that point, I'd had a great race. I knew I had more behind. I knew I could have picked it up. This had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with my training. I got to walk for a while in pure cosmic sunshine. I got to stand in the sun. I had my exactly what I wanted, exactly what I needed. And then when I crossed the finish line, my last 2 miles, I had to walk up most of Fifth Avenue towards the park. Because the shoes that I was running in were Nikes. And the problem, and I've said this before with the new Nikes, the Vaporflies and the Zoom Flies, I was wearing the Zoom Fly 3. They were not designed for walking. And what that means is there's no heel support, and they are literally actually really terrible for walking. So during that 2 mile walk, I got massive blisters on 2 parts of my feet. I have not had blisters from running in over a decade, you guys. It was a lot. Wow. So with the blisters on my feet, finally, I'm like, the only way I'm going to feel better is if I start jogging. So I did. And then that felt fine. So I started running, and I had another cup of water, and then I was like straight down. And my last mile and a half, 2 miles, were the fastest of my race, which is exactly what you want. So that made me feel better about what had happened in between, and I can live with it. I got what I needed to get. And then when I saw that I had come within, I think, 2 seconds of what I ran in 2015, being like, wow, I'm much fitter now. I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but I'm much fitter now than I was when I ran in 2015. Yeah. I am much smarter now. And I was just totally in control. There was nothing really propelling me forward. I was in my own head thinking only about myself and what I needed to get. And there's something really empowering about that. Like, I came close to 2015 MK, even though I had to walk 2.5 miles. So actually, that means I'm fitter. And if that's the comparison, that's the perspective that I really needed to feel good. Because final note here, the first set of predictions that kind of came in based off of the power data and the critical power test that I did for Stride was 341. It would have put me right at a little bit behind, but not that far behind where I was in Philadelphia. And technically a 351 isn't that far behind my 342 that day either. But all of this was to be about, what do I need to get to keep going? I need one good day. I need to feel good. I need a good race so I can then turn around and keep going towards a great race. I need to feel validated, and I need to feel like something sort of signifying the mark where these past 3 years are finally behind me, and I'm pushing forward as a brand new MK, and all of that mission accomplished.
I'm so happy for you. Thank you. All of that makes me really happy. And as I said on Sunday night in the live stream, I feel like in sharing all of this with us, all this internal journey of getting ready for this marathon and then doing it, you are just continuing to give all of us this great, great gift that no one had ever given me before I met you. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry it's been that way for so many people, but I get that the common narratives around running, and I was having a really long chat with someone about this before the race started. Some woman I randomly met in the corral, really lovely lady named Amy from Omaha, who just is like a mile a minute chatting. She's only been running for about 5 years, but she's hella fast. And she's mostly a trail runner and trains pretty much the same way that I recommend people training. And I was laughing and saying, I tell people time blocks and not mileage, and they can't handle it. Yes, I have them going, 6 days a week too, because it maximizes your options. And she's like, it really doesn't take that long to ramp up for 100 miler. I'm like, I know exactly. So when the more we talked, it was really validating to hear that, everything old is new again. Most of my methods are old, but they're still good and they still work. And big reminder, y'all, I ran a 4:16, could have gone faster on 0 speed work. I haven't even been doing accelerators.
Yeah, that's real. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you can do a whole lot of really good stuff without having to risk your body or break it in the process.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really, 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 really important, because it's so ingrained now that we can't get it out. The only way to get faster is with speed work. And I'm like, jumping into something before you're ready to get there, that's a really great way to get broken instead of faster. There are all kinds of routes to fast. And that's kind of where slow burn comes in. I'm like, instead of going and doing something really intense and trying to break the bank, what's something we could do that would be fun, productive? If you want to tie a goal to it, great. But if you just need just a little bit more work and a little more intensity and a little different way of looking at the same thing you've always done, this is where slow burn would come into play. And it seems like it had the exact effect that I wanted it to have. We had a couple people that were like, I'm pretty close to overtrained. We had a couple people that were like, I'm really tired. this is catching up to me. But that was what it was designed to do. Slow burn was designed to be, rather than throwing you in the deep end and seeing if you can hang on, which is how I feel like a lot of track attack style speed programs, they're designed to do. This is more like a frog boiling in a pot where we're turning the heat up little by little, and you don't know what's happening until you're at the end, and then the whole thing's over with. And wow, I hung on till the end of this. And I'll let other people kind of describe it in their own words. But when I think about what my best next step would be, it would definitely be something like this. So I'm super excited that you're going to be doing it in January. And we're just to announce this now, we have not yet rolled out the holiday strength challenge, but it's coming, and we're going to price it at $45. And if you buy in all of that will be applied towards the purchase price of Slow Burn. We're going to offer it 3 times, possibly 4 in 2020, but you will automatically receive a $45 coupon. The program will cost $125. This will knock it down to $80, and you can use it at any point during 2020. And it is the only discount where we will be offering on this program throughout the year.
Yeah. And we will revisit that at the end of the podcast. By the time we've gotten you so excited that you're like, all right, how do I do this? Get me the information. We'll go over all of that again. I'm really excited to listen to the voice memos that people submitted because they get me really fired up to do this. I can't wait to do this. So one of the things that we've decided to do with our podcast is to section it off. We're going to have segments going forward. And our first segment is going to be called, apropos, the warm-up. So we are ready to start our warm-up. And you started addressing already the first question that I wanted to ask you, which is, what did we, when we debuted this program in beta form, what did we need to get? And what were we hoping our people were going to get when they signed up? And so I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to hear from a couple of people, and then we'll move on to strides.
So another thing I was doing yesterday was sort of channeling my inner Ross. I love, and I referenced this moment a lot because I can't get enough of it, when she was like, oh, you asked her to step aside one day, and when you were demonstrating something, and she was like, no, they need to see my braids. And she had 4 of them and was holding 2 up in each direction and turning her head around. And I was like, there's something really just beautiful about that. And when, and I spoke to Susan the day before the race, and she was like, she put it very succinctly. It was a throwaway comment. And those are both always the comments that, stick the hardest, even though you never mean them to. She was like, well, what do you need? What do you need him to see? And that kind of rung in my head when I was getting dressed, and I was like, it's my surgical scars. And the irony is, like, you can't see them in the pictures because they're really tiny. They're visible to me, but I mean, I'm kind of a lot closer to them than any camera got during the course of that race. But that was the continual reminder that whenever I look back, I can be like, oh, that was the first race after surgery. Here's the picture. There are the scars. You know what I mean? So if I'm using this as a benchmark going forward, what do I need to do is I need to look back and I need to see those scars. If I forget everything else, the scars will remind me. And so when I think about what I needed Slow Burn to be, we needed some sort of a hard start like this for people. Broadly and generally speaking, there aren't that many ways to train when it comes to running. Either you are doing it by yourself or you're training for an event. And I don't love that. There are a couple of bridge programs that I've offered in the past that I wanted to keep people motivated together and keep the community going in between training cycles. But what I failed to truly grasp was that a lot of people don't want to be in training all the time. They don't necessarily want to have a goal all the time. They don't necessarily want to be on that path all the time. So the decision matrix gets really complicated. And from a coaching perspective, I can only offer very short type of progressive programs. If you say to me, I want to get faster. I want to get this. I want to get that. I want to get stronger. I'm like, well, then we've got to be really, methodical about how we approach it. And thanks, Harvard. Methodical. Gotta be methodical.
I saw you making the word. I could see you making the word with your mouth. You were right on the edge of it. I was just you loosened it up for me.
It's all good. It is all good. Yeah, really wanting to be like methodical about how we go about it, and recognizing that we've got people all over the place. The people in Arizona are finally running outside versus people in Boston who are like, I need to be on a treadmill. So trying to keep everyone sort of like aligned and together. It's easier to do now in the current format that we have, but I recognize that there's still, we still need to have some ramps to go do something a little different briefly and then sort of return to the baseline. Mm-hmm. So I know not everyone, and it was made very, very clear to me over and over and over again. I don't want to get faster. I don't care if I get faster. It'd be nice if I got faster, but that's not my goal, which is funny because in a room full of 20 people to hear that so loudly, I want to do this because I want to do something different. I want to keep going, but I don't have a race on the calendar. I think this could be really interesting. Well, okay, well, then why are you here? What do you want to get? Don't talk to me about faster. I don't care about faster. Don't talk to me about stronger. I don't really care about stronger. I'm like, well, then what is it? And so that became kind of I went from a very sure idea of why, here's what I'm building. Here's what I'm offering. What will people want? And there's always going to be that gap, that disconnect between what you say it is and what people want it to be. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, well, you know what? We're going to change this up a little bit. We're going to do, Zooms every other week. I'm going to collect all the data I can. And I'm just going to let them tell me, why are you here? What are you thinking? Are you getting what you came for? Even if you don't know what it is specifically that you came for. So there's this big question mark. So that's kind of where we were in the beginning when we decided to roll it out. It also in the beginning was called Track Attack because the sort of data I was working with had to do with the questions I was getting. Frankly, last year, or earlier this year, after I had, before I'd even opened up fitness protection, people saying, I want this, I want that. Could you do this? Could you do that? And all of it was very intense and hardcore, which is I get that I'm a very intense personality. I get that I can come across as very firm because I am, but I really don't think of myself as hardcore. I think I'm about as normcore as it comes, if that's the thing. I am median core. I'm going to hang to the median. I'm not going to give an inch more than I have to because that's really not efficient statistically or economically. So yeah, I'm like, what? So if you are coming here for something, if you would not be coming to me, or if people are coming to me for hardcore things, that's confusing to me because that's kind of the opposite of what I think I project. So I didn't really know. It was all kind of up in the air. But when I initially called it Track Attack, one, it rhymes. It's really cute. But two, I was just thinking we're going to get off the roads and go somewhere different for a little while and really let you get in the zone. Because in the final note on this, the reason that I still love track so much, even though I've never run a part of a track team, and it's not about the speed work of it. It's not about like, we're going to be faster, more efficient here than anywhere else. It's more, you can truly get in the zone and focus there in a way that you can't on roads when there are drivers and people on the sidewalks and cracks in the sidewalks. Tracks typically are very well manicured. Roads, not so much. Sidewalks, almost never. So if you were going to go and really try to feel something and learn something new, a track is a great place, new effort level that is. A track's a great place to do it, as is the treadmill. So if I can do something on a track, then you can also find what you need to get on a treadmill, and that would reconcile people in two different hemispheres, for lack of a better delineation between Arizona and Boston.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people did really respond to that. And it was interesting, the pushback we got on the name Track Attack when we ultimately started asking people. So let's hear a little bit from Fran from New Hampshire and Helen from California, who I think had, pretty different experiences on this program and had a lot of, I thought, really helpful things to say.
Hi, everyone. This is Fran Scheller, fitness protection maintainer and slow burn beta tester. For me, helping test out slow burn represented a huge unknown. Unknowns can be scary, amazing, and everything in between. I wanted to be a part of this unknown and try something new. Throughout the 8 weeks, slow burn reinforced some life skills and helped to build others as well as make me stronger and run faster than I realized I could. I often felt nervous and scared about whether I could even do a hard workout. I surprised myself each and every time with how I could get out of my head and just go. Fitting in the added strength was a lesson in time management for me. Some days I didn't do the strength until 9 p.m. Some days I pushed it to the next day. I had hoped to race the local 5K to end slow burn beta with a bang, but life had other plans, which leads me to the biggest gain I got from slow burn beta. Self-forgiveness. Yes, we want to excel at all the things. Sometimes that thing doesn't happen for some reason, or you have to modify to make all or some of it happen, and that is okay. I am coached and loved, and I'm winning at life.
Love you, Fran. All right, here's
I like
Helen.
That.
Yeah, I like that too. That was they're all so good. They're all so good. Helen's is really great too. Here we go.
Hi, Sarah and MK and Chris. So I absolutely loved the experience of slow burn. The support to actually get that much strength done was just incredible. Seeing Susan work that much every day got me going. Slow burn's really different than maintain, but I learned a lot more about how I make those hard decisions, like choosing to end a workout early or not running at all. But I also learned a lot about how to push a little, how to carve out time for strength, and most importantly, how to step back and look at all the badass things I can do. My advice for anyone thinking about it is to keep a good training log. Don't worry about checking all the boxes, but take note of your runs, your food, your sleep, but also your joy and all the good things about it. When you're tired or you just feel off, you have notes to go back to. And when you want to boost your spirits, all the wins are there too. That's all I have to share. Thank you so much, MK, Sarah, Susan, and everyone for showing up and making this tons of fun.
Thank you so much, Helen and Fran. I love both of those notes. I especially love the nod to everything not running that you thought about, struggled with, learned throughout this whole process. And so in shifting to this next portion of the podcast, which I'm referring to as strides, because we love strides in the fitness protection program, I want to talk about the strength. Both Helen and Fran alluded to the strength. There's a lot of strength. There's more strength than they've been doing. This is different from maintain. You have to make your decisions differently about how to prioritize. So if you could talk a little bit about how you and Alex came up with the strength for this plan, what you needed people to get out of it, and the kinds of decisions you were hoping to kind of to prompt in people, that would be awesome.
So I did a training several years ago at the Olympic Training Center down in Colorado Springs. This is back when I was like, I need certifications. I need to get these marks of like credibility. I need to learn, which is why I've been openly like telling you, like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's great marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Like first you want to become it, then you want to get certified in it. So there's like a rabbit hole and all it does is sort of like feed your imposter syndrome. So I was still there trying to like get rid of my imposter syndrome, because this is like, and I was the only person in the room who was not really working with in the pipeline. And in pipeline to me is just, I'm not working in high school track or cross country or anything that would lead trying to develop Olympic athletes. Right. I'm like totally outside of this, but I still want the training techniques. So there was one that was referenced that I took a lot of notes on, and it was, again, relatively new way of looking at the same thing. And it was by Veronique Billat, and her method was centered around the notion of not maxing out and not taking big risks. And we can get the same benefits by doing the work differently. It's net more work, but it has less negative impact on your body. And I remember looking at this and thinking, gosh, I don't want to give this to my elite. I want to give this to like everybody else. And I couldn't think of a really good way to do that. So I designed a program based on those principles a while ago and really didn't do anything with it because I didn't think it would be easy to sell, because it's not the punch. That book by Williams, one about, watching the grass growing. We are growing. It's literally called We Are Growing. And every blade of grass is like trying as they grow at the same time after being cut by the lawnmower. They're all figuring out who they are. I'm the curliest. I'm the tallest. I'm the pointiest. Everyone has to be the est. And I feel like when you're trying to market programs, everyone's looking for the ist as their hook. And you can be unique without being an A-EST, right? So, but I still, not knowing that that's what people are looking for and that's the framework they use to evaluate, I'm like, well, I have no idea how to position this. Because if I say it's the safest and you get hurt, I can't, lightning strikes you on the track because you're out there doing this in the rain. I don't think that's a problem. That's my fault or my plan's fault. But that's easily, it can go that way, right? Like as soon as I say this is the safest, people will find some way to be like, actually, and I can't have that. So I tend to shy away from superlatives that way. It's like, I really like, this is the best next step. So when I pulled this program out, I discussed it with Alex Lanton and said, I just really want to focus on doing things a little differently. And it's going to be intense, but not so intense they can't go the next day. And it's going to catch up to them very, very quickly. So week 1, they're going to be mad at me because this isn't going to feel like a lot of work. Week 2,
Susan is going to be like, Sarah, what do you think if I go do a spin class? And I was like, Susan! Come on, Susan. I love you, Susan. But I laughed so hard when you said that. I was like, MK did say that week 1, everyone's going to think it's not enough.
Yeah. And week 2, people might still think it's not enough, but that was where I'm like, okay, we're going to have to double down. If you aren't feeling anything yet, good. That means you're doing it correctly. If you are nervous that you're not feeling anything yet, despite me telling you that you're not supposed to feel anything yet, please do not start maxing out the instructions on a day-to-day basis. Because we were testing everything in this beta test, from how do you interpret the instructions that I give you? What do you do? What do you choose to do versus what I tell you to do? How well, because it's not a question of how well I communicate or how well you listen. It's just about how effective are my coaching cues. And that's always what it comes down to, is have I distilled good science into good executable cues that a person can do on their own. If that translation is complete, then I'm winning. So I think by week 2, I was like, I think I need to alter the instructions, because I could tell people are doing more than they need to be doing, and they're worried about it. And I'm like, that is going to bite them really hard if they stay consistent come week 3. And so when I kind of laid out, like, by week 6, they're going to be eating everything in the house. They're not going to be that tired. It's going to creep up on them, and they're going to be like, oh, whoa. But by that point, they should be feeling not the burn, but rather they should feel the weight of the work catching up. They're not going to resent anything yet, but they should also feel the benefits. They should feel how the strength work is spilling over into their running, and how their running is actually feeling different than it did when they first started, and that there may be a bigger awareness is there. So when I described like all the bullet points that I needed him to get out, that I needed a client to get out of it, he was like, yep, got it, and came back, and I didn't even, was like, let's do month 1, and then we'll do month 2 after I've got the feedback from month 1, because I want to make sure if anyone's overtrained, we need the ability to pivot, dial back, or make changes. And if psychologically it is really damaging to a client if I change course, if I say anything other than, oh, you're great, we're going to bump this up a lot, like we're going to skip from 2nd to 4th grade, people feel like they're being held back because they just don't have any other way of looking at it. Like, I'm not progressing. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And so I can't afford for anyone to know that. So I'm like, give me 2 cycles, month 1, and then 2 more cycles for month 2. I'll let you know midway through. Yeah.
It's like being taken out of honors English. It's like very,
Totally. Which is not necessarily to mean like you're dumb, but rather, what you're in
like 17, this isn't the right work for you right now, and you're not benefiting from it.
You're doing 6 AP courses. That's arguably not about how smart you are, but that's too much at once. How about we bet the one where you can pick it up next year is honors English. Like, this is the place where you don't need to be 100%. No one ever hears that. It always feels punitive.
Ooh, yes.
So the desire to avoid anything punitive. But now I feel like I'm committed to everything in the program. I think we hit it just right. And I would argue even for the person who was like, you know what, I really do want to get stronger, but I don't think I want to do those runs. If they had just committed to doing the strength every day with Susan, they would have gotten their money's worth out of the program, because everybody got hella booty, hella strong. I think that was how Helen's meet up. She was like, I've got booty now, booty strength, booty power. I feel it when I stand. I feel it when I walk. It's like it pushes me out of a chair like a rocket launcher. I'm like, oh, I like that. Here we go. Yeah, you got a rocket launching booty. Take it. So that was when I was thinking like there could be different ways to package and sell this. But we'll come to all that later. So that's kind of where hopefully that answers your question. Some like, what were we trying to do? Those were the instructions he gave, and I feel like we hit the mark.
Totally. Now I want to hear from Trisha Mitchell and Janet Smith, another couple of serious booty having awesome people. And they both, I think they're two runners with very different temperaments. And so it's all of our runners have very different temperaments. And since all of these people have been in Maintain with us for a while, and all of them were committed to doing this a month before it started, they were all that we knew they were going to be the ones. They had stepped up and said, yes, I want to do this, because they knew that they had to be totally dialed in for the month of August if they wanted to start this on September 1st. So we know all these people pretty well at this point. We've been working with them for a while. And I feel like runners with very different personality types came at this very differently, had very different kind of points of, am I doing this wrong, in response to different things. And I've really loved hearing their different perspectives on kind of where they came out of that and how they ultimately like put things into perspective.
Hi, my name is Janet, and I'm 58 years old. I have been heart rate training with MK for better than 4 years. Through heart rate training, I have refound my passion for running, even if it is at an older age. I have just completed Slow Burn through the Fitness Protection Program, and I have to say, holy cow. And I'm saying that in a great way. Slow Burn was 8 weeks of daily strength and running. The strength portion reintroduced me to using weights and bands during 30-minute workouts. And the running added in some challenging speed work that on paper seemed insurmountable. But I proved to myself I could, in fact, execute some really hard runs. At the end of the 8 weeks, I feel stronger and more confident to push my pace during a race.
My name is Trisha Mitchell. I live in Austin, Texas, and I would like to tell you about my experience with the Fitness Protection Program's Slow Burn plan. I started running 4.5 years ago at the age of 48, and I've been heart rate training with Coach MK for almost 3 full years. As a result of this work with MK, I've achieved a consistent 5-day-a-week habit of running and doing strength exercises, which includes my current streak of 57 injury-free weeks. This year, that included my first time to run throughout a Texas summer. I signed up for Slow Burn because I was curious about harder efforts, greater strength, and not only hitting a faster pace, but really exploring who I am and what my body and mind can do in holding that level of effort. I would say that Slow Burn is right for big girl and big boy runners who have already internalized the rhythm of the workouts in a Fitness Protection Program week, who want a challenge, and who have time for more strength 5 days a week. I'm glad I signed up. I didn't nail everything about this plan, but I really enjoyed the challenge of the harder Monday and Wednesday workouts. They were no joke. And I had some surprises. Specifically, after week 5, I started to experience serious fatigue that led me to prioritize sleep over running. Since I live in Texas, I was getting up before sunrise when the temperature was under 80 degrees. So the choice of run versus sleep was a true trade-off. There often wasn't a way to fit in the runs later in the day. The other members of the group who live in other parts of the country and the world were in the same boat with their struggles, and we just supported each other with whatever we were able to do through the 8 weeks of the program. Having daily videos on Facebook of the strength exercises was really helpful for staying on track. I definitely want to try Slow Burn again in the future. The runs were fun, and I loved how strong I felt from the full body strength work. I have many lingering questions about the fatigue I experienced, which was probably a combination of my particular level of fitness, my age, maybe some hormones, the very real stresses of my life, my sleep habits, the heat, and then adding in the demands of Slow Burn on top of all of that. For now, my plan is to take it easy for a few months and take another crack at it.
So I really love both of those. And Janet Smith, the one we heard from first, Janet was like still filling in for me doing Strength and Maintain at the end of September. And she was like, I love it. I swear. I'm so tired. I think she was definitely one of those people that started out being like, all right, let's go get it. And then, like she said, holy cow, you know? And I remember her saying on one of the Zoom calls at one point, like, man, guys, I am tired. Like, I am just full body tired. And Janet really knows herself very well and is, I think, especially talented at just kind of like telling it like it is. And yet pressing on always. Trisha, also, whole Texas summer. I mean, and Trisha knew that she wanted to do this. I believe she was one of the original people, as well as Janet, saying like, hey, you keep talking about like doing some sort of a strength special thing, like upsell me on the strength. Do it. I'm ready. I'm here for it. So she was working towards this all summer, which meant she was really dialed in all summer in Austin. And I just admire the hell out of that.
Yes.
They did amazing things.
Truly. I remember once upon a time I asked a client what they wanted to get out of the off season. And I was like, you know, and I threw out some notions. I'm like, do you want to get stronger? Do you want to get faster? Do you want to lose some weight? Do you want to work on efficiency? Like, where do you want to go? Because this client had hinted at each of those throughout the course of our time together to that point. Mm-hmm. And the response was all of them. And I'm like, wait, it doesn't work that way. We need to pick one and really focus. And, the relationship fell apart shortly after that, which, you know, always makes me a little bit sad, but it makes me understand what I got out of that was that we don't understand the differences. We don't understand, we can achieve all of that, but not by focusing on all of it. We have to focus in one direction and other items will fall into place. And maybe if we focus on strength, you'll lose some weight. I'm not here specifically to tell anyone to lose weight or specifically to like say, I will never help you do that. It's something I'm just not here to tell you what to want. Though I can caution against trying to lose weight is not necessarily going to make everything else fall into place because how you lose the weight really, 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 really matters. So, or how you decide to get faster really, really, really matters. Because if you go too far in one direction, bad things will happen. If you think of it like putting on makeup, I think when you're trying to achieve like a good day look, you're for an office, right? You're not going to do the same thing that you would if you were taking a picture or going out at night. Like if you're going out at night, you want to highlight, like if you take a little time, you might wear brighter lipstick or brighter eyeshadow or a little more eye, whatever, but you can't do all of it, right? You can't have like really great rouge and really bright lipstick and really, you know, amazing eyeshadows, like, because it's just too much on one face. So, like you pick one thing, accentuate it and go from there. And I feel like that's sort of,
I just learned something.
You know, honestly, I learned that last week. We're about to do some professional videos and I'm like, I can either pay to get my makeup done every time or I can go learn how to do this. I haven't done it regularly in over a decade. So these were all the instructions that I received. For a day look, we just need a little bit of everything. For a night look, we pick the thing we like best that day and we go with, and it anyway, it was just a whole nother rabbit hole. I just don't have time to go down with YouTube. But, I'm like, okay, what's my thing, eyes. And I cringe when I say that because it's so hard to do, but I said, I not to go totally like off topic. I really think most things in life are the same way. Like you can't accentuate everything at once. Then it's all a bunch of white noise canceling each other out. Pick one thing, really go with it. And you know what? The rest will fall into place. You can have really great eyes and then people might notice your lips. You know what I mean? But you don't need to exaggerate everything. So the same thing with training. When you ask yourself, what do I need to get in the off cycle? Understanding that people might go too far in one direction. What I'm trying to do is make sure we just like kind of push the boundaries. We go far enough that we're experiencing something different and something new, that you're getting your money's worth and you feel like it without the pressure to, or the lack of understanding about how all the pieces come together. Because if this was just a strength program, it's like, well, just run. You know, then you're probably, if I'm not paying attention to the running when I write it in, then you're probably not paying attention to the running when you do it. Or you're forgetting like that the strength was designed to go with running. And so you drop the running because it's cold and you're not thinking about it because it's a strength program. You know what I mean? All the little pieces do kind of fall apart. And without overwhelming people, I'm like, how far can we sort of push the envelope to make it fun and interesting and not overwhelming? And they're really glad when it's over as opposed to sad it didn't go for longer. And they still might want to do it again. Maybe not right away, but at some point. Yeah. So I feel like we nailed that and mission was totally accomplished. And the fact that Janet, of all people, who was doing extra and picking up with all your vacations. Not that I'm jealous. I need one really badly. Just kidding. I got surgery on my last vacation.
Did you read my blog post about my vacation? Did it make you jealous?
No. No, not really. What I imagined you doing was so much better than the reality. I think about all that Janet was doing on top of that and how she still was like, this is great. I would do it again. That was really affirming. So I feel like what you think you need to get, what you want to get, and the choices we make are still very much guided by what we think we're supposed to choose. And it's never a truly independent choice. So that is what I was thinking when I've designed Slow Burn, knowing you're going to want to do that. Most people will overcommit and under deliver. So this program doesn't. Yeah. Cause again, when it's centered around a race, then there's a performance and a finish line. And, if I didn't do this, then it wasn't worth it. And if I look back and I had only done a third of the work, it wasn't worth it. So somehow it always points back to me and to the program or to you in a way that makes you feel bad that I don't want either, right? It's not that you only did 30% of the work. It's not because the plan sucked, maybe because the coaching cues weren't good. If you only did, or maybe because we weren't clear, or you weren't like there was a disconnect somewhere. And that is always going to come back to me sooner than it does to you, because why would we look inside and be like, I made a mistake? Which again, is not what I want people to do. All of my programs, if you do 70% of the work, you're going to get 95% of the results, right? Doing 100% of it is only going to move the needle maybe 5 to 10% in the output. So when you think of it that way, I only need to do 70%. It really takes the pressure off. Because when a person comes and says, well, I've only been doing, 3 runs each week, and I've only been doing, and it's instead of giving themselves credit for what they have done, have you been more consistent than you have been on other programs? Have you ever been this consistent on your own in the past? And if you're not giving yourself credit for what you are doing, then I would argue this program is working if you're just doing 50 to 70% of the work. Because again, we're not throwing everything at some big goal that we're working towards in a way that's disruptive. And frankly, that's just not sustainable. 50 to 70% in the off season is totally sustainable. Even if you're doing all the strength one week and then saying, I didn't like that, so next week I'm going to do less strength and more running. You have all kinds of options and all kinds of flexibility. There's no pressure or penalty for, well, I can't justify this expense because I'm not doing every single thing on it. I would be like, oof. Yeah. Then you're really looking at this incorrectly. Yeah. This is not how I would want you to look at this, because I want you to value the work that you're doing, not punish yourself for the work that you're not doing or feel bad by counting the work that you're not doing. Yeah.
All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is the long runs on this plan, because the long runs do not go away. As an introduction to that topic, I want to hear from Janelle and I want to hear from Sarah. And then I will ask you to talk about what can change when we're in a new phase where we're emphasizing something different and what does not change. So, Janelle first.
Hi, this is Janelle in Nevada. I just participated in the new Strength Beta program, and I really liked it. I was hurt last year, early January, in a fall on ice that didn't seem too big of a deal at first, but ended up with a lot of injuries and repercussions from that. So I spent a lot of the year kind of trying to figure out what was wrong with me and rebuilding from there. So the Strength Beta was actually really good for me because running had become hard, strength training had become impossible, and everything was discouraging. Running at 140 pace had been fine before that, but then everything just felt hard. And through the Strength Beta program, I got running regularly again. And I actually loved the Balat days. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but in my head, that's what it sounds like. I loved those days because it kind of changed up the running at 140 and I could quit worrying about my heart rate. But it also gave me a chance to feel like I could just run for the interval and not worry about anything. I did like that both coaches were really chill about whether you checked in every day, whether you got every workout done just exactly, or whatever. It was a really good program for me to kind of feel like I could get my running legs again. And that's all I want to say. And I apologize. I hope you can't hear my dog. Bye.
Oh my God. The dog drinking water during that whole thing is just amazing. I love it. I know Chris has edited all of these, so we may or we may not actually hear that in the final product, but I thought it was so funny. Okay. Next.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. Sarah Seberg.
Hi, this is Sarah in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. I signed up for the strength beta because of the word strength and not really for speed. I've been nagged by some minor but annoying injuries in the last year or so, like an inflamed heel spur, and felt like I was still on my way back. I knew strength and running would be a key to staying injury-free. Initially a little intimidated, I loved the hard speed workouts, which I did on my local high school track. I was initially very good about strength, but ultimately did probably a little more than half the work throughout the cycle. Life just got in the way. But as a sometime CrossFitter, the strength felt like a good complement to the running. It felt like work, but not so hard that it impacted my running the next day. The easier days were nice and mellow, but the harder days certainly had me sweating and a little shaky at the end. I also missed almost a week of running halfway through because I tweaked my back. But all in all, I absolutely loved the program. I loved how the runs felt, how I felt after the runs. I loved the community of the group doing the same thing. And I'm really looking forward to doing it again sometime in 2020. My last long run of this cycle was absolutely glorious. If I run the average pace of that long run in my optional race half tomorrow, it will be one of my better times. And I'm very curious to see how it goes next time around if I don't take an injury week off and I'm even more consistent about the strength.
So, just by the by, Sarah Seberg totally nailed that half marathon she is referring to, which she ran after she recorded this voice memo. She ran it last Saturday as we're recording, and she crushed it. She ran within a minute of what she ran a year ago before she had all the injury issues, and she knows she could have gone faster. She was running with a friend who she was, it was not her race. It was not totally on her terms. And yeah, I think when she texted me about it afterwards, she was like, I know it could have been better. Could have been this, could have been that. Also, side note, I've only run sub 2:30 twice since I had my kids, and this was one of those times. I mean, Sarah Seberg is amazing. Janelle is amazing. I both of you, thank you so much for always being there for the calls, always participating. Your participation and feedback was just huge. And I love the way Sarah talked about her last amazing long run at the end, because I was a little jealous that the strength beta people got to do Squire's long runs. That is, I have to admit, the part that I'm looking forward to the most, because I've always seen that workout from a distance and thought, I want to try that. I know you're going to say it's terrible, and I will regret having said that. And you can remind me of what I said on this podcast today, but it looks so tantalizing and appealing.
I think I'm going to let our listeners do that for me as you go. Not to say like you're being watched, but yeah. So the thing about slow burn is that this looks like, on paper, a high level advanced 5K training program for someone who is quite competitive. And so remember, how in the past I've said like, training for a fast 5K is not less work than training for a marathon. It's just different work.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
It looks, you do a little bit of speed type, fast twitch work 3 days per week. And we're doing a little more and slightly longer stuff on the long runs compared to what Molly Huddle would do if she was getting ready for an indoor track season. So it is a very interesting looking program on paper, and it does end up being pretty darn intense. But where the long run stuff comes in, I have gotten so much stick for the longest time about long runs because it's the thing people always want to modify. I want to add fast finish runs. I want to add some speed in there. I want to break it up. And my response to that is always, why? What do you really need to get out of it? As a coach, there's a big difference. And I say this as someone who just ran a marathon yesterday. There is a huge difference mentally, physically, emotionally between doing one thing continuously for 2 hours and doing one thing continuously for more than 4. And we need to 2 hours to 2 to 2:30 is long enough that our body remembers how to do it and is aware that we're going to need to keep going longer if we have a marathon, or for some of us, a half marathon, in our sights in the future. So that awareness, 1, is important. And 2, I need everyone to remember why the long run really exists. It's not about needing to practice race pace. It's about needing to internalize those effort levels. One of the reasons I think so many people bonk in a marathon is they forget that a marathon is only a little bit faster than your 140 pace. It's only slightly faster than your jog. So if you're not coming all the way down from altitude and looking at a great day like New York, if your 140 pace, and maybe strength can be the difference, because remember, I've done this in the past too. 14.5-minute miles translated into like 9:48 miles or something on race day a few years ago in 2013. But I can't promise that there was a lot that went into that, most of which had to do. Unfortunately, I didn't have Garmin back then, so I didn't have any stored. I was watching my heart rate as I went. I don't have any stored data to like take you through that race turn by turn. I just remember it. And the difference is really, it's that sense of mastery. Am I working too hard? Am I going too fast? And what you can sustain for 2 hours versus what you can really sustain for 4. Again, we forget. We forget, like, I'm kind of done, or it's why people will go and have, I think I'm going to stick to half marathons. I'm like, yeah, but once you get in a half marathon, you'll be done by the 10-mile mark. So there's a mentality and a psychology of the long run that I think is important, that we need to keep it on the schedule, because you're not going to do it unless I tell you to. It's the first thing to go if you go coachless, and the last thing to come back as you start ramping up to jump into a training program again. So if I could do one thing over the course of Slow Burn, it would be to remind you why this long run is there, and 2, make absolutely certain you never ask me for elements added into your long run ever again, because they are awful.
I know. I get excited to experience these things that you describe as awful, because I always learn something about myself. And this is one that I've been looking at on other people's training plans for like almost 4 years. The particular kind of long run that you assign to the strength beta people, it's I think different from what most of them have done before. And the length of it is not like the long runs get shorter. The length of the longest long run is 2 hours and 30 minutes on this plan, I believe.
Yep. I keep everything that I do. I wanted to keep this sort of the same range, as what everybody does on a month to month in the subscription plans in Maintain. With just the midweek runs are a little bit shorter to accommodate more strength work. And the long runs are, again, in the same range, but with more intensity thrown in, so that, theoretically we're getting that much more out of them and that much less rest. Yeah.
So when people, and I did note that when people slid over from Maintain into this on September 1st, first of all, one of the things we told them in no uncertain terms and over again was that if they wanted to start on September 1st, they had to be in Maintain and doing the work for the whole month of August. That was non-negotiable. And everyone was really good about that. People planned ahead. That's what we're inviting you to do if you're interested in joining me on January 6th. And they were ready. And part of, I imagine a really big part of that for you, not only was having people like dialed in with their fitness, but also having that habit really, really well established for 4 weeks before you start something like this, where getting the non-running components is equally important, if not more important than the running. Got to be ready to put that in. And that's going to require modifying the Maintain habits a little bit. But if you have the Maintain habits down, you have a really good foundation. You have a really good place to start from.
And that's where I kind of go back and forth on this, because I've said all along, I don't want it to start on January the 1st, because my kids will still be home, and I assume everyone else's kids will be too. So the first day back in Denver is the 6th for most people. But then I sit back and think about that. You need to dial things in for a month in advance. Well, we're asking them to do that over Christmas or over, the holiday season, whether or not you acknowledge any sort of holiday, if you're beholden to the school calendar, this could be complicated. So if you're thinking of doing this, and this is your chance to reach out to me and say, if you could make it, the first Monday in February, give me the month of January to get things together. And then we launch round 1 of this on February the 6th. If that sounds appealing, let me know. Let us know what you think. please do email info@fitnessprotection.com. Email Coach Sarah, put it in the Facebook groups. I don't really care where you say it. I care that just know that we need your answer to come back to us. Not to say I'm changing everything on you, Sarah. I know, like, once we get the schedule down and you're eager to start and I don't want to change it, but this is the one place where I'm kind of like, is that fair to be like, you got to dial this in during the time of the year when it's impossible to so much as hold things together? Does it make more sense to launch the first round of this in February and let it go February, March? I don't know. Y'all tell me. We'll take a look at what people tell, and then we'll decide from there. But the one thing is the two things that are certain: there will only be one discount given. So get in the Holiday Strength Challenge, even if you don't care about winning the indoor stair mill, mini stair mill that we've got to give away, or any of the other presents that I'm really excited to be giving out.
So many presents.
And two, if you, like Sarah Seberg, find yourself starting and unable to finish because life got in the way, know that whatever you pay, we will only charge you half of that to come back within a 12-month period. So let's say the program, for sure, the program's going to cost $125. You donate make the $45 charity donation, forward us the receipt for the Holiday Strength Challenge. So that means when you register for Slow Burn, you will pay us only $80. You participate in Slow Burn. Life gets in the way week 2. You can't complete. We will let you join the community in any subsequent round, either later that year or the first quarter of 2021 for $40.
Woo! That is amazing. That's really amazing.
Half price. Yeah. I really want to be fair to everyone. I've got to be fair to us because we're still putting our time into it. And by producing all of the content that comes along with it, it's less about what you use, but rather about because if we were going to try to price it that way, we're only going to produce the things that we are positive are being consumed the most. And that means we're going to have to drop a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. And I'd rather not do that. So, or rely on people working for free to, as everyone has been doing while we get traction. I can't do that indefinitely. So knowing that, but I do want to be fair to when life gets in the way, what do? We can still keep this priced at an affordable level, keeping the overhead where it needs to be. To use any of the up ramps or any of the specialized products like this, you still have to remain a subscriber because we're baking in the additional cost on top of the cost of the subscription for these additional programs. So I get that it can feel like a lot out of your pocket at once. We try to minimize it as much as possible and maximize what you get in return.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I want to hear from 2 more people, and then we are going to cool down with some foam rolling and hear from Susan last about her race. So first we're going to hear from Anna and Virginia, and then we can start to wrap things up.
Hi, this is Anna from Wisconsin, and I was part of the Slow Burn beta test. Slow Burn was a kick in the pants for my running. I love the challenge of the harder runs and the cumulative work of the very runner-specific strength that built up over the program. But of course, it's never really about the running. More important than stronger muscles and faster paces is my confidence to face challenges and ever-increasing knowledge that I truly am a badass. There is empowerment in facing down difficult conversations or situations with the knowledge that I did a damn hard workout before breakfast. You should do Slow Burn if you want to strengthen your glutes and every other running-related muscle, if you are ready to invest extra time and energy in your physical well-being, including devoting time to sleeping, because you're going to need the sleep if you do the work. Do Slow Burn if you have big running goals, but they aren't on the immediate horizon. And you should definitely do Slow Burn if you want to grow, both in running and in self-confidence.
Love that.
Me too.
Here's Virginia.
Before she starts, there's something I wanted to point out. Virginia is probably, as a participant, I paid attention to the most because she is not a user of Facebook, which means that she was not, she came into this knowing that she would not be able to use the community. We've said from the beginning, value is derived from, getting the program and, the podcast and the coaching. And in the case of Slow Burn, there will be 3, possibly 4, definitely 3 Zoom chats where we all kind of sit together and talk, give you to prepare you before we start, take stock midway through, and then definitely at the end. And I double checked with her multiple times. And now I know you don't use Facebook. Are you sure? And she's like, yes. And she's also been thriving in fitness protection despite not being part of the daily throws in that community, and feels like she's getting her money's worth out of that. So I feel like that's important before you hear what she has to say. Understand that this is the beta tester who I'm like, can you still think this is worth the money if you come into it knowing that you're only going to use, say, 60% of the resources?
This is Virginia. I loved Strength Beta. I loved it because it was really hard, and I actually did 99% of it. I think I missed 2 runs. I loved it because of the way that it amped up its difficulty. I loved the long hard runs and the short hard runs, or the intervals and the long runs, because the way they increased and the way they also gave me a direct experience of how mental effort is for me, like how much I thought, oh, I can't do that. And then I'm doing it. So I realized how much of I can't do it, how much of my ability is controlled by my thought process or my fear or my assumption. I love the length of it because I just got to the point where I was kind of hating it and now I miss it. So I think that's a really good length. And yeah, I loved the strength training. Was hard, but I'm definitely stronger, and I definitely have a much better idea of what effort and pace feel like to me on different days and what it feels like in general. So yay for slow burn or strength beta or whatever you choose to call it.
I love it.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. I love both of those. I love all of these. And I especially love the way Virginia touched on just sort of the way these hard runs bring you right up against that brain space where you start to go a little bit crazy. You know, it's not, none of the runs are hard enough that you're going to be like out of your head. You know, your head is still going to be part of this. And I remember the week that we switched over from 60-second intervals to 3-minute intervals, everybody freaked out a little bit. Hold on a second. I don't know about this. And then they did it.
I know. And that was kind of expected because the first series of intervals are only 30 seconds. And that makes people mad too. MK, that's not long enough for me to know if I'm overshooting or not. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Like you're missing it. I don't expect you to nail the pace. So you've got to let that go. What you have to ask yourself is, am I going harder than I need to go? That's it. And if the answer is yes on the last one, back off a little bit on the next one. Think of it more as rather than trying to like walk the tightrope and nail it perfectly. Just go do it, feel it, look back, say, okay, you know what? That was too fast. Doing the next one a little more slowly. Do the next one, look back and say, okay, you know what? That was too slow. Going to pick it up a touch on the next one. Just, baby bear it, trying to get to you're just right and see it more as that iterative process of trying to find and then lock into that effort level before we get to the 1 minute mark. Because at 1 minute, that's where the rubber starts to meet the road. And then at 3 minutes, by the time we get there, I expect you to have not perfectly under any conditions. If the wind is all of a sudden blowing in your face, yes, it's gonna hurt your ability to feel or find paces and effort levels. But rather, it's more about kind of knowing where you are. Am I running 8K right now or 10K? Am I running 8K or half marathon? You should have a pretty good idea of at least being able to distinguish those two. Am I running my 10K effort, which is proxy for tempo, for lactate, for whatever, or am I running faster than that? That's it. If you finish this program and you're like, oh, I know 10K versus 8K effort, I feel like we're winning because that is going to help you run every race you ever participate in that much smarter, more smartly. You're going to Harvard it. Bad grammar, whatever.
We have made Harvard a verb on many occasions on this podcast, in this program. I think this is no time to stop.
Totally.
So before we close out with Susan, I just want to revisit something that Anna said. You should do this program if you have big goals in running, but they are not of an immediate nature. So what that means for you, if you're thinking about this for the spring, is your spring marathon possibilities are pretty constrained if you're going to do this, either starting January or starting February. Even if we do start it in January, we do not recommend jumping right onto a 10-week marathon ramp coming off of this program. That is going to burn you out. That is too much. So if you're looking at marathons, end of May is kind of the earliest you really want to think about. And that's if we start in January. If we start in February, then it's off the table until June. So know that. And if you know MK, you know how she feels about spring marathons. So she would probably argue you're not missing much.
Fuck spring.
Fuck spring. But that is something to keep in mind. If you have your heart set on, let's say, the Maine Coast Marathon on May 13th or what, I don't know. I think May 9th or 10th, probably. Probably not a good idea this year. And that's something to keep in mind.
Which is in the middle. I think Big Sur would be fine as long as you go there prepared to like hike a whole lot of it. You know what I mean? If it's something that's so hard or so ridiculous or so fun that you're like, I'm doing it just for the experience and you can hold on to that and remember it, then sure, you will not be ready to show up and dominate, but you might find yourself a lot better prepared for the first part of it than you might have been otherwise. If you're doing something like MDI later in the year, this would be a great way to kickstart your year and kind of set you on the path towards the type of strength you would need to do really well at that race, because it's hilly AF. It is the example I give in all of my documentation, talking about what a hilly race is and how it looks like and how to calculate slope, taking you back to, Algebra 1. Which most people did in the 8th grade and I did as a senior in high school. Yay! But there you go. Yeah. So I feel like it's really important to note as well, doing this twice in one calendar year, why? There needs to be a really compelling reason. If you don't complete it the first time and you want a second shot at it, that's one thing. It's another thing entirely to say like, well, I have really big goals, so I'm going to do this in March and then I'm going to do it in January. Then I'll do it again in July and then I'm going to run Sim and or Houston. And I'd be like, well, okay, well, the timing works, but I'm afraid let's talk about this a little bit. Maybe there's a different way we can approach the year. And if you're having thoughts like that, it's good to have them. It's good to plan. And we're going to be releasing information and signups pretty soon for a year ahead planning seminar that Coach Sarah and I are going to be leading together. It's going to be an online webinar. And we will help you navigate all the options that Fitness Protection will be putting out in 2020 and how to help you get a guideline or a blueprint for the best year possible based on whatever it is you need to get out of the year. This is not about like coming up with like a hardcore plan from which you may not deviate, but rather you have an idea of what all the options are so that you can put the jigsaw puzzle together as time goes by. It's not about knowing, it's about having some sort of a blueprint to work with. And if you've ever met an architect or seen blueprints, they get changed a whole lot over the course of building something. They were not intended to be static. That's why I use the word blueprint.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very apt metaphor, I think. And speaking of hilly AF, let's hear from Susan about her 10K. By the way, Susan, way to pick a 10K. I hate the 10K distance so much. I think it is so hard because you're going really hard, but it is not going to be over in 3.1 miles, unlike a 5K. 5Ks are horrible, but 10Ks never end. And Susan just nailed a 10K this past weekend coming off of Slow Burn, and we are going to hear about that.
Hi, everyone. Susan here. I was one of the participants in the Slow Burn beta, and I wanted to let you all know how much I enjoyed it. I think that if you are a runner who wants to get stronger, you should definitely do this program. It's really different from any other program I've done. It's not like, picking up some weights or doing some squats or some push-ups after a run. I think it's next level. All of the exercises are meant to build strength, coordination, balance, agility, and they're all very runner specific. Each day builds on the day before. Each week builds on the previous week. I was very dedicated with all of the exercises, and I can tell you that I am my endurance has improved, my balance and agility. And honestly, because you really do have to be dedicated to do the program, the strength does take a while. And one of the most important things I learned was that I can do a lot of strength in one session, and I can do it 5 days a week, and I am stronger for it. And actually, I decided to register for a 10K at the end of this program, which I ran yesterday, even though I have a head cold. So the thing about the 10K that I ran is it starts out going 3/4 of a mile uphill on a bridge, and then you run downhill for another 3/4 of a mile, and then you turn around and do the whole thing over again. Now, I live in New Jersey. I don't do much in the way of hills, and I really didn't do any hill-specific training. But I can tell you that I completely nailed the first 3 miles of that race. I was so impressed. I did not have to walk the hills. I did not have that psychic dread that comes from enduring hills. I was able to keep my heart rate steady, and I was able to give the right amount of effort to, I really took advantage of keeping it steady uphill and then flying a little more on the downhill. I did not hurt myself. And actually, after getting those first 3 miles out of the way, the second half of the race was really, I don't want to say it was effortless because I worked really hard at it, but I felt just strong and good the whole time. So I think every runner I think everybody should do this program. And I feel like I am really set up well for a fantastic 2020. And I am really excited to see what the year brings. So thank you so much, Coach MK and Coach Sarah, for giving us a chance to try this out. It was one of my favorite training experiences. Bye.
Yes, Susan.
Yay.
I love that.
I love it too, because she kind of was the first one to sort of nudge me in this direction as well. I want a strength program. I want a strength program. And my counterpoint was I'm not a certified strength trainer. I don't want to become one. I feel like what part of me would translate well into a strength type of program, because those are all predicated on, again, the pointy stuff, the ists, right? And I don't gravitate towards programs like that. So I'm really glad she enjoyed it, because if she hadn't, that would feel like, well, what was this all for then, Susan? That's kind of like you saying you don't want to go to 3 days at the fair anymore, which, by the way, you're not allowed to say ever, Susan.
Locked in for life, Susan.
Right? Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad it landed in every way that we intended it to. Because the final note here is a problem that I had a long time ago when I first started as a coach. Was that trying to coordinate with other professionals on the same human was very difficult. The only person, tri-coaches, people who identify as multi-sport coaches are phenomenal, because they're like, I specialize in combining aspects, not in developing specific programs. So they'll send you to a swim coach in the off season. And then there are coaches who position themselves as specifically a swim coach that understands that you'll be doing things on top of swimming and understands either you get the multi-sport mentality or you don't. If you treat it like one sport in a vacuum, that's not going to work for the client. There is nothing that I have found so far to be the equivalent of the multi-sport coach when it comes to strength and strength training in general, which means that if you ask for a certain type of program, you're going to get it and it's going to be great, but it might not reconcile well with a running program during that period, or it might be so much that they don't take the running into account at all. If you think of it, I remember reading a deconstruction of Angelina Jolie's face forever ago in Us Weekly. She is widely considered to be one of the most beautiful ethereal creatures on earth. But if you were to break it down, there's no specific part of her that is the ist. Like her eyes, not that great. Her lips, not that great. Her nose, kind of on the small side. Cheekbones, there's nothing about her that really kind of stands out until you put all of those pieces together. It creates just a stunningly beautiful face. And I think of it when I'm designing my programs, I'm thinking of it in that perspective. If you try to bring all of the ists, all of the superlatives together, you're not necessarily going to get a superlative product. All the prettiest aspects in the world, the prettiest eyes, the best nose, the best cheekbones all together. It was a Franken face. It was very strange to look at, because it was on the page opposite of Angelina Jolie's. It had to have been like 2000. It was on an international flight coming back from, back when I was living in Asia. But it's that visual was so jarring. It really stuck in my head and gives me pause. Whenever I find myself, well, I want the best program. I'm like, how about the most robust? How about the best holistically considered, holistic with the W? How about approaching this the same way a multi-sport coach would, versus a trainer with one goal, one sport, one track mind, as though nothing else exists, or assuming that you're saying, I'm going to do it all, but you're only writing it as though I'm only expecting you to do a third of it, which I think there's something wrong in that as well. It's more about if I did, I write everything with the eye towards if life gets in the way, and it will, and you're only to do 70% of what's written. Do you feel empowered to make those cuts? Do you feel like you know where the changes should come? And are you going to feel like you're getting what you need to physically at the end of it if you have quote unquote only done 70%? So it's not designed with the intent of that you doing less. I have to think about the person who's going to do everything as written, the rule followers amongst us. Those people are going to do all and then some. So I need to make sure those people are not overtrained, and the people who are doing 70% and are good with that don't feel condescended or pandered to in any way. So that is where my sweet spot as a coach lies, because I want to give you permission to go do all the other stuff. But during these, like, you want to do CrossFit with Sarah Seberg? Great, do it. If you're near her, why would you not do CrossFit with Sarah Seberg? I would love to go see her in her natural habitat.
I might even do CrossFit once in my life if I could do it with Sarah Seberg. And that is really saying something. I love you, Sarah Seberg.
Because I know she's going to be the person that's like, I'm not jumping on that box. Now what? You know, she's going to be pushing back on the instructor, which is, and not a lot of people feel like they could do that in the boxes that I've seen, where everyone just like tries to go and compete with each other, and they're going to say, I want more, and not, I'm pretty sure I can't do that. Or if I do, it's going to be dangerous. So, if I was going to do it with anyone, it would be Seberg, who I know will always be there advocating for herself and calling things out. So I want anyone coming into my programs to feel as empowered as Seberg, as brave as Seberg, with the knowledge of what to say and when to say it, which somehow Susan just inherently has. So, there you have it. I feel like we really nailed it with Slow Burn. I'm excited about Slow Burn, and I really hope that everyone gives it a try at least once next year, because there are multiple arguments to be made for slow burn, not just I want to get stronger, I want to get faster. I think you could get both without burning out. But also, if there's a period where you're like, I need a little extra something, but I'm not excited about a race and I don't think I want to race, this is a great option, because that is kind of why Sarah Seberg took it during this period when she did, as well as a couple others. Well, I don't really want to race a marathon. There are no halves I'm excited about. How about slow burn was a really great option during a period of nothing else, in lieu of nothing else that excited them. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the greatest thing about it. I think it's yet one more, because I think maintain is also a great answer to that question. What do I do if I don't have a race that I'm into? I hear over and over again the unexamined idea that the way to get me to run, if I'm going through a tough time and I'm not running, the way to get me to do it is to sign up for a race. And you already know, if you're listening to this, that we don't really agree that that's the best way. Shaming yourself into running, not a great idea. So I think Maintain offers a great answer to that question. I think this offers something to the people in Maintain who are like, I love Maintain, but I would be interested in something a little bit different. And I know I love Maintain. God knows I love Maintain so much. I've been doing it forever, it feels like. And I am really excited to switch gears a little bit come January or February the 6th. You tell us. Okay, everybody, you're coached and you're loved, and we cannot wait to see you in January.
Hell yeah. Sooner. We got the Holiday Strength Challenge first.
Oh, yeah.
Registration should open in a couple of weeks, and then the first day will be the Monday before Thanksgiving. That's November 25th.
Get so excited, you guys, because this, in addition to being your way to getting a coupon for Slow Burn, this is going to be amazing, and I'm so excited.